So you've recorded your first track and you're ready to get people to listen to it. Or better yet, you have a bunch of songs, but you just haven't been able to get the people to listen to your music. You just feel like you'll never develop a fan base. It's been a constant struggle. Well, today we're going to talk about what you could have been doing wrong and how to fix it. So let's do it. Yo, what's good, man? This is Brokeboi and I'm back with some more advice for up-and-coming rappers and producers and pretty much any creative out there who just wants to make art and at the same time have a fan base, have some sort of audience who appreciates what they do, and maybe even make a living out of this. So today we're talking about something a lot of up-and-coming rappers struggle with, and that's finding an audience, finding a fan base. Everyone thinks that this is all about just recording a track or maybe making an EP, or even producers think it's about making a beat or making like 10 beats. And once you put it out there, people will naturally gravitate towards it and people will find you and they'll be super appreciative of what you've done and they'll praise you and all that kind of stuff. But once you do actually get into it, you realize that that's actually way easier said than done, and promoting your music and trying to get people to listen to you and trying to get people to just stop and give you the time of day is actually way harder than you thought. Something both up-and-coming rappers and producers seem to not understand is that not necessarily everyone is interested in your product. Not necessarily everyone is interested in the music you make or the beats you make or maybe the tracks you record. Not everyone that listens to hip-hop necessarily cares about your music, and not everyone who listens to hip-hop wants to buy your beats. People have to understand this. They start marketing to a very wide audience and they realize that they're just wasting their time because no one's really listening to them and no one really cares, and everyone gets the same people in their DMs every single day telling them to buy beats, telling them to stream their music. And what they don't realize is that in order to do this effectively, you have to find some sort of strategy that works for you and that works for your target audience. You have to find something that works for the people you want to reach out to and that has at the same time a good response rate. So if you're marketing to a bunch of people, chances are most of that will be a waste of time because not everyone cares about your music. So what I'm trying to get at is, if you're marketing your music, if you're self-promoting, then chances are you're probably reaching out to the wrong people. You're probably marketing yourself to the wrong people, which is why you're not getting the response you want to get. And before you go ahead and say, no, I'm actually marketing to people who like hip-hop music, that doesn't mean that's the right audience. Well, think about it this way. Let's say you're a door-to-door salesperson and you're knock on doors and you're trying to convince people to buy your vacuum because it's the best, it's this, it's that. And while mostly everyone does have a home, not necessarily everyone is interested in your product. The majority of that will actually be a waste of time. This is because if you think about it, your audience is actually not as wide as you thought it was. So in order for someone to be in the market for a vacuum, you need to have some sort of like a list of prerequisites that they have to meet in order to make someone eligible to be in the market for a vacuum. For example, at the very surface level, someone who's trying to buy a vacuum needs to have at least some sort of space, maybe a home, maybe a room, at the same time be able to afford what you're selling. You wouldn't try and sell a vacuum to an 11-year-old boy because they most probably don't meet neither of those prerequisites. Just how you wouldn't waste your time trying to get an 11-year-old to buy your vacuum because, well, they don't have a home or they don't have the funds to afford it, you shouldn't market your music to people who don't want to listen to your music. So what do I mean by that? If you're making hip-hop music, not necessarily everyone who listens to hip-hop wants to listen to your type of hip-hop. If you're a producer and you maybe make trap beats, people who are looking for pop beats don't care about your trap beats. Some of them might, but chances are the majority of them won't. So what I'm getting at is, if you're a hip-hop artist, you don't want to market your music to someone who listens to country. Not everyone who listens to music is your audience. Now, one downside of narrowing down your audience might be when you go too narrow and you realize that your target audience is actually 15 people across the planet, 10 of which are your family members. And you'll realize that it's significantly harder to actually build a fan base when you go too narrow. So ideally what you want to do, you want to narrow down your audience from those hundreds of millions or even billions of people down to a number that you can actually target and approach. Well, you might be wondering now, well, how do I go about actually narrowing down my audience? And this is where I'm going to introduce a concept by Russell Brunson called the Dream 100. The Dream 100 is a list of 100 places your audience is hanging out, 100 places online where your audience is already gathered, or 100 places that you believe have the same audience as you and they've already generated that and they have their attention. For example, if you're a hip-hop artist, on your Dream 100 you might have places like World Star Hip Hop or No Jumper or Lyrical Lemonade. These are places that have already generated the audience you're potentially looking for. Let's say, for example, you had unlimited promo points, and you can pretty much promote your music on any platform. which platforms would these be and why? Once you actually write down your Dream 100, then you have to go about actually infiltrating it and putting yourself in front of that audience. Which brings me to the next question you have to ask yourself. Do you have more money or do you have more time? Your answer to this question will be crucial, as it will decide the route you take in infiltrating the Dream 100. Now, if you're like the majority of people who has more time than money, you realize that organic reach is actually very time consuming, but at the same time can be very rewarding, especially in the starting stages. So how do you go about actually infiltrating the Dream 100 if you have a lot of time? How do you organically make yourself a part of that circle and you put yourself in front of their audiences? You'll actually be surprised. If you're an up-and-coming hip-hop producer or an artist, you'll realize that a lot of people online are looking for free music they can use in their content. So a lot of smaller reaction channels that have your target audience might be a good way to start. At the same time, there's a lot of Instagram promo pages that just showcase artists. They're always looking for content to post, so it might be a good idea to reach out to them. Whatever you do, make sure you start building some sort of relationship with them and not just using them for their platforms, because that will come across as corny, and before you even know it, they'll cut ties with you. Another way to go is to actually find playlists that have similar music to yours on them and try to reach out to the curators, try to talk to them, try to offer them some sort of value in return for a spot on their playlists. Be very respectful, don't be annoying, don't be spammy to them. And yeah, it's pretty much what it boils down to, is actually using your free time to build relationships. You'll be surprised, a lot of these smaller promo pages on Instagram might even be interested just from you consistently engaging with their content. Now, if you have more money than time, which is actually pretty rare for an up-and-coming artist or producer, then I would suggest you approach your Dream 100 with, well, money. You can put your music on No Jumper, you can put your music on World Star Hip Hop, you can reach out to massive reaction channels and actually have your music play in the beginning. There's a bunch of ways to go about it. All you need to do is reach out. So because this video is mostly targeted to up-and-coming rappers and producers who are usually on a budget, and I go by Brokeboi, I suggest going the no money route, at least in the beginning, until you actually get a hang of it and you actually have some sort of solid idea for your target audience. So the basics you need to keep in mind is be respectful, build relationships, engage with their content, be consistent with it, and slowly over time you will actually start developing a fan base. Also, for your fans, I pretty much say this on every single video of mine, make sure you give them the time of day, you appreciate them, you reach out to them, you check up on them, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys next week.